Good day, everyone. Peace and all good to you. So, I am here today to discuss the assigned topic to me, which is the modernism and post-modernism in early periods of the literary movement. So, to start with, let's have first an activity. So, you need to arrange these key characteristics according to their literary movement. Okay, so moving on to our discussion. So to start with, let's start first with the modernism. So modernism starts from late 19th century to mid 20th century. So modernism is a broad cultural, artistic, and literary movement that emerged in the late 19th and early 20th century. So it was characterized by a deliberate break from traditional forms of writing and a quest to capture the essence of contemporary life in an era of rapid technological, social, and political change. So modernism emerged as a reflection to the rapid changes of the late 19th and early 20th centuries, focusing on the breaking away from traditional literary styles to better reflect the complexities of the modern life. So we have here different key characteristics. First is the experimentation, the subjectivity, disillusionment, urbanization, and rejection of tradition. So to start with, let's start with the experimentation. So in experimentation, modernist writers often experiment with narrative structure, style, and language. This included the use of stream of consciousness, fragmented narratives, and unreliable narrators. So modernist writers innovated with narrative structures like fragmented storytelling and techniques like the stream of consciousness, just like what I mentioned earlier, showcasing new ways to present stories. The next one is the subjectivity. So modernism emphasized the inner thoughts and emotions of individuals. It often explored the complexities of human consciousness and psychology. So subjectivity, the focus shifted to exploring individual thoughts and emotions, delving deeply into human consciousness and personal psychology. Okay, so the next one is the disillusionment. So many modernist works reflects a sense of disillusionment and alienation, particularly in the aftermath of the World War I. So reflecting the trauma and alienation caused by events like World War I, many works expressed a loss of faith in traditional values and a sense of detachment. Okay, so moving on to the next key characteristic, which is the urbanization. So the movement frequently depicted the experience of urban life and the changes brought about by industrialization. So cities and industrialization were central themes capturing the excitement and challenges of a rapidly modernizing world. And the last key characteristic of modernism is the rejection of tradition. So modernist writers rejected traditional literary forms and conventions, seeking new ways to represent reality. So traditional literary forms were abandoned in favor of inventive methods that sought to redefine realism in literature. So we have here different prominent authors and their works. So first we have James Joyce, and one of his famous work was the Ulysses. And next one is Virginia Woolf. One of her famous work was the Lighthouse. And also we have here T.S. Eliot, and one of his famous work was The Wasteland. And also we have here Franz Kafka, and One of his famous work was The Metamorphoses. And also, we have here Ezra Pound, and one of his famous works was the Cantos. So in modernism, it highlights the authors and groundbreaking works that define modernism, such as James Joyce's innovative narrative style and Kafka's surreal themes. Okay, so since we're done now with the modernism, let's move on now to the postmodernism, which starts on mid 20th century to the present, which is right now. Okay, so excuse me. So postmodernism is a reaction against modernism emerging in the mid 20th century. So it is characterized by a skeptical approach to grand narratives and ideologies, as well as a focus on relativism and the deconstruction of meaning. So, postmodernism arose in response to modernism, embracing skepticism toward absolute truths and questioning universal ideologies. So, of course, we have also here key characteristics of postmodernism. So, the first one is the metafiction, followed by intertextuality, parody, and irony, and also the fragmentation, and last one is the pastiche. Okay, so to start with, let's start with the metafiction as one of the key characteristics of postmodernism. So metafiction, postmodernist writers often use self-referential techniques, drawing attention to the process of writing and the artificiality of literature. So in metafiction, writers emphasize the process of storytelling itself, often breaking the fourth wall to remind readers that literature is a construct. Okay, so the second key characteristic is the intertextualization. So this movement frequently references or incorporates elements from other texts, blending various genres and styles. Okay, so in intertextuality, it's like more on blending text and genres, created a rich tapestry of references, inviting readers to connect the dots between various influences. Okay, so the third key characteristic is the parody and irony. So postmodernist works often employ parody, irony, and playfulness just to challenge established norms and conventions. So, in parody and irony, it is like more on humor, satire, and playful techniques to just employed to critique societal norms and conventions. Okay, so moving on to the fourth one, which is the fragmentation. So, similar to modernism, postmodernism embraces fragmented narratives and structures, reflecting the complexity and multiplicity of reality. So in fragmentation, just like what I mentioned earlier, it is similar to modernism. It embraced disjointed structures to reflect reality's multifaceted and chaotic nature. And moving on to the last one, which is the pastiche. It is the blending of various styles, genres, and cultural references, is a hallmark of postmodernist literature. So in pastiche, it is like more on borrowing and combining styles, genres, and cultural references to become a hallmark, creating a vibrant and eclectic works. So, of course, we also have here the prominent authors and works from the postmodernists. So the first one is the Thomas Pynchon, and his famous work was The Gravity's Rainbow, followed by Kurt Vonnegut, and his famous artwork was The Slaughterhouse-Five. Also, we have here Don DeLillo, and one of his famous work was The White Nose. And okay, we also have here Margaret Atwood, and her famous artwork was The Handmaid's Tale. And We also have here Haruki Murakami, and his famous artwork was The Kafka on the Shore. Okay, so both modernism and postmodernism have left a profound impact on the literary world, shaping the way we understand and interpret literature today. So each movement brought innovative techniques and perspectives, challenging readers and writers to think beyond traditional boundaries. So both movements revolutionized literature by pushing boundaries, offering fresh perspectives, and challenging readers to question the nature of reality, truth, and art. Okay, so before we end our discussion, uh, after that, we will now move on to our activity. So, in this activity, you need to create a timeline of modernism and modernism literary movement. So, on the table, it includes there the literary movement, the era, and the key characteristics, and of course, the prominent works and authors. Thank you for listening, and I hope you've learned something today.